Should we calm down in between events or should we stay in the zone? So if you're getting in the zone, this is absolutely brilliant because obviously you're manipulating your nervous system to enhance your performance. So when you get in the zone or you're getting this nervous system arousal, you're going to inevitably feel more focused. You're going to improve your inter and intramuscular coordination via that kind of nervous system stimulation. That's why when you get to comp day or if you're in in the zone, everything feels a little bit easier and just more efficient. You know, that's why very often we'll hit a PB at comp that you couldn't get near at training the week before because of the kind of the neural stimulation and that nervous system arousal. So if you're managing to get in this zone, then you're doing a very good job. The thing that we need to be wary of is how much time you spend in the zone, because it is very, very costly in terms of energy expenditure and just general fatigue. So if we stay in this heightened zone for, like, say, the full duration of a comp, it's going to cost you, and that's why you'll see people flagging off towards the end of the comp, towards the end of comps. They get 4 events in or 5 events deep, and even though they're fit enough in terms of energy expenditure, in terms of what the muscles are doing, well, if you think about it, if you're flagging by event 4 or event 5, like, realistically, if you look at the kind of the actual amount of exercise that you've done, you might have just done 3 minutes work or 4 minutes work total, but it's a lot more costly than just going for 3 or 4 minutes total non-stop at high effort outside the context of a competition, because you're not getting this kind of massive level of arousal. So if we know that it's very costly in terms of staying there, and that's why sometimes inexplicably you get deep into a comp and you're feeling that fatigue and you're feeling flat, let's say. So then we can look at how we can manipulate basically getting back down into a more relaxed way in terms of the nervous system in between events. So an extreme example of this is, say, a lot of comps, like nowadays, you're getting some faster paced comps. You might be 3-5 events within 2 to 3 hours, but everybody's probably who's competed can probably remember the comp that took a lot more time than maybe it should have done, when you were there for, I don't know, 8 hours and it's taken to do 5 events. And you can probably compare that, how much more exhausting that was compared to the faster pace comp, even though it may seem counterintuitive, because you kind of, like, people get scared that they're going to be able to recover quick enough in between events to get ready for the next event. Whereas I suspect a lot of the time that people will actually recover better from these kind of or find the net cost a lot lower of doing like a faster pace, say 3-hour comp to a 6-hour comp. So an example for me that I really underestimated was when I did OSG World in 2021. And on paper, it looks really, really well spaced out. You're doing 2 events per day. So in my case, I was doing two events on one day and then 2 events on the next day. And on paper, like, this sounds really easy. Whereas that was the most challenging thing I found about the comp. I was warmed up for event 1, and then because there were so many categories, there were hours. It was maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours in between events, and I found that passage of time really, really exhausting. And I'll be a lot better suited next time that I'm in that situation, because I know that I'm not going to be able to it's not going to be efficient to try and keep a pretty high level of arousal and then scale it up for the next event, because the time spent in that kind of moderate zone is just really, really costly. So what we're doing next time is getting some strategies in place to finish the first event and then go and completely chill out, and then get back up again in my warm up for the next event. So what you can do for this, so you need to tune in with what actually makes you arouse in terms of competition. So for some people, it's getting angry with the music. For some people, it's actually staying relaxed and staying in a happy zone. So this is definitely a skill that can be manipulated, and that you need to learn about yourself and what are your ideal triggers. For example, 4 or 5 years ago, I used to think that angry music and trying to get myself almost like a negative mindset would like fuel me, because I realized that's what a lot of people were doing, and I was just copying this, and I found it really, really, really exhausting. But it was fine, but it worked for a little while, or I thought it did. Whereas for me, I've over the years, obviously, I've learned to find my optimal arousal level, which is personal to me, which is actually the opposite, and it's actually just getting in like a happy zone, getting into a zone where I can picture it when I get into comp mode, where I just make sure that everything's prepared and I feel happy. I'm not anxious about anything. I'm not trying, like, I actually put music on comp day, stuff that's like quite nostalgic and reminds me of like a fun time in my life, or something good, or a nice memory, rather than it being like aggressive music and something for like to get me fired up, like with a negative connotation attached to it. But I'm aware that this works for a lot of people. So what I'm saying is that instead of thinking, oh, get some angry music on or get some nice music on, if you took my approach, you maybe feel like you just want to go and chill out, and it doesn't really trigger you and doesn't really click for you. So you've got to find out what works best for you, and it could be either side of the continuum, or it could be something slightly different. So what I find works for bringing that arousal level down in between in between events for me, in order to be to be efficient and get myself out of that zone that's really, really taxing and fatiguing, is I personally struggle with focusing on more than one thing at once, and I really, really like people. So going to a comp and seeing people there doing a sport that I love, and I love helping people, I love seeing other people do really well and stuff. So I can very easily get distracted off my game and just get kind of drawn into what other people are doing and get into conversations, and then I get distracted, and then I look at what time's elapsed, and then, oh, I haven't got ready for the next event. Like I can easily get very flustered. So I find what works really well for me is kind of detaching myself from what other people are doing and disengaging from other people. And it may seem pretty miserable at comps. If you see me sometimes when I'm doing a comp that I really, really care about, I might seem like quite distant from other people. But this is the only way for me that I can actually get that arousal level back down, chilled out, because I have to focus on it so hard. Otherwise, I'll just stay in the heightened state where I'm just kind of buzzing all day. And then I get to the point deeper into the comp where I'm kind of feeling that fatigue accumulation. So actually disengaging from the comp, if I know that there's going to be a good rest in between, then maybe I'll put my headphones in and go for a walk, or go for a coffee by myself, or go and listen to music in the car, or just go and do something where it's not about people distracting me. It's about knowing myself and knowing that I get distracted by engaging with other people. And I suppose, like, when I'm not competing, that's another thing that makes me really happy, is actually engaging with other people and helping other people. So yeah, it's detaching from that, and that allows me to control my arousal levels better, and then I've got more of a resource to tap into when it comes to the next event. So how that nervous system fatigue can differ from muscular fatigue, and why it can be tricky sometimes, is everybody knows that feeling of DOMS and that muscle soreness, and you feel like you pair that kind of muscle soreness that you feel after a workout or after a competition the next day or a couple of days after, and there's that relationship that you pair in your head with that, my back's really sore, or my legs are really sore from X, Y, and Z. Whereas this kind of neural fatigue and this nervous system fatigue can be a little bit confusing, because sometimes, like, you might wake up and the next day muscularly you feel absolutely fine. You feel like, oh, I've kind of got away with that yesterday. I don't feel anything from the comp. I feel great. But then you go and you say you might go and try and do some exercise later in the day or training session, and you just feel that you don't feel sore, but the weights just feel really heavy, or you feel flat and you feel sluggish. And it's almost like you feel like that kind of flat feeling. You feel like you've been kind of hit by a train. You might struggle to focus. You might struggle on, like, with other, like, tasks that are normal to you, but not necessarily feel this muscular fatigue. That's where it can be confusing sometimes. So that's what we're trying to kind of minimize the cost of, with controlling the arousal level in between events.